What if lucky nations in EU4 were actually unlucky? I went in and flipped all of the modifiers given by the Lucky Nations modifier that is given to various historically powerful nations like England, Spain, the Ottomans, and a few more throughout the timeline of the game. And that means rather than more governing capacity, they are going to be nerfed. Rather than cheaper mercs, they're going to be more expensive. Rather than positive manpower recovery speed, it's negative, and so on. This should allow the little guys of the game to overcome their big bully neighbors and hopefully make for some interesting outcomes. Also, just a reminder that patrons get early access to all of the videos on this channel, so check it out, link below if that sounds good to you, and consider subscribing for more fun content to come. Here we are in 1444. Hope you guys don't mind my ugly mug in this one. We're going to try it out. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments. We're keeping the natives back by popular demand, and everything is going to look basically what you would expect in vanilla. As a matter of fact, everything guaranteed looks exactly the same as vanilla, but if you dig deep enough, you can find some stuff like this guy right here. As you can see here, governing capacity multiplied by minus 25% for luck. Likewise, trying to recruit mercenary companies costs them more. They have less fort defense than they normally would, and they have more unrest than they normally would. So essentially what I did was I took anything that was a positive value and made it a negative, took anything that was a negative value and made it a positive, with the intention of hopefully affecting some change here with the so-called lucky nations. But I'm sure I would have explained most of that in the intro. Of course, you guys know how we figure this out. We go ahead and up that to speed 5 and unpause. Now, while we're going, I guess I could explain a couple of the lucky nations to be looking out for. The Ottomans are obviously a lucky nation. Castile is a lucky nation. Portugal is a lucky nation. England is a lucky nation. France is a lucky nation. So all of the majors, so to speak, are lucky nations, which a lot of people don't know about. Poland is not a lucky nation, but I believe the Commonwealth is, something like that. And then a couple of other formables, like Prussia is definitely a lucky nation. So we'll see exactly how things go with that. Early on, Aragon going for an aggressive move against Tunis. Looks like they got a claim on Jerba. So yeah, they're going to be growing a little bit early on. Might even take some land over here in Granada. Big hoof for Novgorod. Got beat up early by Muscovy and now getting ganged up on by Norway, Sweden, Denmark. So yeah, Novgorod probably going to be going kaput soon. And a bit more action over here in Eastern Europe. Definitely looks like Poland took the PU over Lithuania and is currently attacking Udoyev, who I think is allied to Muscovy or something like that. Either way, there's going to be some border changes over here. And this has literally nothing to do with the lucky nations, but how about Aragon taking the entire coastline from Tunis for the most part? They just really didn't want them raiding them, I suppose. Oh, and I almost missed this. How about that? Ottomans have completely collapsed. We got Wallachia taking a bite, Serbia taking a bite, Albania taking a bite. Of course, beautiful Byzantium taking a bite. Heck, even the Knights took Smyrna. Saruman over here and Germian have been released, and it looks like they're actually about to lose a couple more provinces. So yeah, it looks like the unlucky Ottomans definitely did not do well. And I always have to point it out whenever I see it. Kabu was released from, I believe it was Jolof, and I'm here for it because Kabu is the best color in the game. Uncontested, the best color, up there with Sardinia Piedmont.
Wait a minute!
Say what you want, but I think Rajputana is like the most beautiful color. And as far as over here, it looks like Brittany and Burgundy have both grown. Brittany actually taking a couple of provinces from France in Normandy. Wow. So this war for Poland, which they started, is not going well at all. They have lost a ton of men. They have a lot of war exhaustion. They're getting occupied left and right. And insult to injury, the Teutons seized upon it and attacked Poland with the help of Denmark. So probably not going to see Poland doing too well, even though they are not affected by the buffs either. It just blows my mind that we are barely into the game. The Ottomans have completely collapsed, and it looks like they got dogpiled by literally every single nation that bordered them. They're actually losing a war right now to the Knights. Somehow Byzantium even took some land up here in Crimea in the Sea of Azov. So yeah, a bunch of people are going to be popping out of here, and it looks like Mamluks are probably going to be the big dog if I had to guess. So it's 1477, and aside from the Ottomans collapsing, they're one province left over there in Anatolia. France is doing okay, but look who got the Burgundian inheritance, Lauenburg. Also, it looks like the Lucky Nations modifier is starting to help Scotland out, as they've taken a bit of land from England. So, you know, we'll see how things go with that. We've got a Hungary who took a bunch of land over here from Wallachia, split it with Byzantium actually, and then Poland is beating up on them. So That's a thing. We also have a ducal Prussia, which is a cool thing that was added in 1.34, and I think it's pretty sweet to see it. Oh yeah, and Muscovy, who, by the way, is a lucky nation, is dominating against Denmark and Sweden, so I have no idea what is going on here. There must be some turmoil up in Scandinavia if they're going to be getting beat that bad. Out in the east, we have a Manchuria that has formed, or Manchu, I guess. They have Hokkaido, and they are currently beating the tar out of Oirat to get into Mongolia, so probably only a matter of time before they start clashing with the Ming. It's a little after 1500, and as expected, the Mamluks are definitely taking the mantle of kind of the hegemon of this region, but they're still not thriving quite as much as the Ottomans probably would be if given the opportunity, but I don't know. We'll see how things go within the next couple hundred of years. Byzantium continues to thrive with the Austrian Balkans. Apparently that is a thing because if you couldn't have guessed it, Austria got the PU on Hungary, who lost a big chunk of their land to Poland. And speaking of losing a chunk of their land, Scotland lost some land to England after taking some land from England. So a little bit of back and forth on their front. But how about this? The two-headed penis that is Scandinavia has mostly been taken over by Norway, but there is indeed a Finland that has popped out over here. So that's pretty cool. Two cool things in the same screen. Meanwhile, in the east, Ming continues to dominate over here in China, and Manchu continues to dominate in the Manchuria, but they also are into northern Japan, so maybe we'll see some fun stuff with that. Kyowa has managed to get a lot of eastern Africa under their control, but they are currently at war with a very strong Congo, who has got most of the Congo under their control. Portugal with a cheeky trade company over here in West Africa, but this time Brazil is speaking the Spanish. And conversely, we have the Caribbean, who is mostly going to be speaking Portuguese this time around. And aside from that, that's it for the colonial game. Though I do think this is probably the ideal version of Iceland, is Scottish Iceland, so that's a good thing. And the Reformation is underway with one center of reform down here, one over here in Silesia, and one actually in Copenhagen, so very spread out, but doesn't look like it's actually been doing that good considering that it's already been here for a few years. We'll see how things look once Reformed comes, but yeah, it looks like Catholic may actually manage to do pretty good this time around. Ooh, and over here in Majapahit, they have been pushed out of their lands, or actually pushed over into Sunda's lands, and it actually looks like this Dimak is over here, which is pretty cool. I feel like that's a tag you don't see very often. And like I said, Ming is doing well as far as expansion goes, but not with the Mandate. Not with the Mandate at all. They actually have the unguarded nomadic frontier, so probably going to collapse very soon. And meanwhile, over in Eastern Europe, the carnage between Poland and Muscovy continues, and I'm here for it. So on one hand, this is pretty cool because the dominant faith was actually enforced to be Protestant for the empire. Sadly, doesn't look like anything else is really going to be pushed. They actually don't even have enough electors to keep it going, but you know, they had a good run at it. Now, I've heard of things like this happening before in history. I believe that this is what you refer to as a deluge. The Teutons in Lithuania have already been released, and they are about to lose some major wars. Also, hilariously, Sweden has taken back most of Sweden from Norway because they, at one point, basically were full annexed by Norway. The British Isles haven't changed at all in like 100 years, so AI dumb, I guess. And to be honest with you, the borders of Western Europe as a whole haven't really changed a whole lot in about 100 years, so that's a thing. These occupation lines of Austria getting destroyed by what I think is Regensburg is very funny. And sadly, Byzantium has failed to thrive. They got pretty big off of the Ottomans, but they never really capitalized, and they've lost quite a few wars, I think, to Venice mostly. But somebody not losing wars is the Mamluks, as I said. Definitely doing well, filling that void, becoming one with the Ottomans. India split between Delhi in the north and Vijay in the south, with Multan over there in the west trying to hold on. And Ming's still kicking, with Manchu looking pretty good, eating up all of Korea, and Dai Viet eating a large portion of southern China. And while we're in the area, we got to acknowledge that Japan has formed, which I always like to see. Kyowa has pushed Congo out of the Congo with a little bit of help from the English. And we have Frisians over here in Guinea, and this is not the only place that the Frisians are at. The absolute border gore that is North America, with Frisian Canada, French Canada, and Newfoundland, as well as New Friesland, Florida, and then a bunch of natives. This is disgusting. Like, just take a look at these federations and then these settled tribes. It's huge. They take up so much land, and the AI just won't attack them. Either way, we've got the Caribbean over here who has made their way up into Florida. So Florida is apparently part of the Caribbean in this timeline. Mexicanos speaking Spanish, as well as Californians, I suppose. We've got a Spanish Colombia, not to be confused with Scottish Colombia, right next to Scottish Brazil. And then we have Spanish Brazil next to Portuguese Peru. And when you think Sao Paulo really couldn't get any worse, imagine it being run by people with kilts on. And then we have Portuguese Rio de Prata. Despite being lucky nations, Spain, Commonwealth, Portugal, France are all in the top 4, with Venice, the Mamluks, and then Russia and England rounding out the top 8. Russia and England are both lucky nations as well. Venice is not, and neither is the Mamluks, and I actually would have thought that they were, but they are not. I said that I thought the Catholics would do well in this timeline, and the lie detector test determined that that was a lie. Protestant and Reformed running absolutely rampant, with the Church of England in England, nonetheless. Protestant Anatolia. That's a weird one. Oof. Yeah, Poland is like a one-province minor in Zaporozhye now. Well, there's a couple of random provinces, but we do have a Prussia that has came out of it, which is pretty sweet. We also have a very nice-looking Hanover there in northern parts, as well as what I think is a Swabia. So, pretty cool. And if it couldn't get worse, it's actually not Swabia, it is Denmark that has land here in southern Germany. Nightmare fuel. But I think I spy some French territory being lost to Switzerland, of all people. Though I do think we have to keep our eyes on Venice. They may be the sleeper pick here. With a lot of that development from northern Italy, they're doing pretty good, but Byzantium has had a bit of a comeback as well, eating up Serbia as well as some lands over there in northern Anatolia. And I talked about Vietnam taking land in South China, but how about Qing taking land in South China? As a matter of fact, I don't think there's a Ming anymore. It's just Shun, Yu, Ning, Liang, and Qing. With the mandate going to Qing, who is actually gaining mandate right now. Okay, man. And also, yes, Prussia is a lucky nation, but not until after 1700, I believe. And it's 1650 something now, so we have some time. North America has mostly filled in with Spain over here on the west coast, Vinland on the north coast, and the rest is mostly French, but, a couple provinces here and there to the Frisians. We have 100 years left, and I'm eating the dang quesadilla. I'm gonna keep that in there. Now, at this point, I really do think that the English/Scottish AI is like turned off. It's weird because Scotland is colonizing down here, but there's nothing going on between them. England will not declare war on them. It just won't happen. Meanwhile, a few border changes over here. Venice getting big and beefy, Bohemia looking okay, and Hanover looking really good. Also, how about this Frankfurtian race to the sea? That's a good one. The Spanish are in southern Italy, splitting it with Venice and the Pope Man, but there's one province over here that's Byzantium, of course. And despite switching from Sweden to Norway back to Sweden, it actually looks like Sweden is it's Russia. It's actually Russia this time. A little bit of weird border gore over here between Transoxiana and a gem. I have no idea why. But in India, we have a Mamluks who is extremely powerful, bordering a Delhi and a Vijay, both doing extremely well in their own regards, separating their powers with a very, very long border. And speaking of long borders, we've got Qing with a massive border with Russia, as well as Shun, splitting the entirety of China with them for the most part. And every time I look at Japan, it does appear that Qing has taken like 1 or 2 more provinces than they had before, so that's a thing apparently. Also, something worth noting, it appears that Korea is a one-province minor on Jeju, the island off the coast of Korea. Also, that is a cool hat. Now take a look at this. We have Australia, and that's all fine and dandy. Australia is a cool formable, but what about this one? Australian South Africa. That is not something I've seen before. And even funnier is that it's right next to Friesland. Friesland has also been exiled to South Africa. And in the south of America, we have an independent Chile who has broken free from Portugal, and it looks like they're about to eat up the Portuguese colony of Rio de Prata as well. It also appears that Cuba has broken free from Portugal. No surprise. But I am sad to say that New Friesland as well as Frisian Canada have been taken over by the Danes. You can't escape the Danes in this timeline. And with 100 years left, we have Spain, France, and then Venice in the top 3, with Mamluks, Kilwa, Denmark, Delhi, and Qing rounding out the top 8. Kilwa is not somebody who I would have expected to do well, but they are doing well. That isolation over there in Eastern Africa. Okay. Also, Qing coming up here and doing as well as they are is very good to see. I do find it interesting, though, that Spain and France are so overpowered that they're able to overcome the lack of the lucky modifier, or at least the malices even of the lucky modifier, to come out on top. Though I don't think Spain gets it after 1700, so that's a thing. Hello, darkness, my old friend, 1821, and, definitely some stuff to take a look at. Looks like Delhi was hungry towards the end here and ate up Shun, as well as looking to probably take a decent bite out of Vijay. So shout out Delhi, I guess. And while we're over here, an honorable mention to Siam, who decided to stick it out and hold on, but barely. Also, this is a Kilwa colony over here in Burma, right next to Kilwan Malaya with their beautiful borders over here. And I called this. Qing continues to slowly encroach on Japan, taking all the provinces over here except for Fuji, apparently. Mount Fuji just remains Japanese. Also, how did Ainu get loose over here? And what is up with this dude's hair? Having a bad hair day. I watched an interesting documentary just a couple of weeks ago about the Ainu people, or the people of Hokkaido. Very interesting, worth a watch. Cuba competing for dominance over here. And Mexico definitely broke free, but it looks like they're losing a war to the colonial nation of Denmark. And Chile definitely had a game. They ended up conquering a very large portion of South America, except for apparently a couple of Cuban provinces down there. Don't ask me why. Spanish Brazil and Scottish Columbia remain the only colonial nations in South America. And we do have a United States, but this is some border gore over here. This is a lot of border gore. The left coast is still Spanish, so nothing has changed over here except for Mexico. And this has to be the weirdest Danish borders I've ever seen. Revolutionary, by the way. Conquering a ton of land left and right in the most zigzag pattern I can think of. The revolution is just strong in general. We have revolutionary Goslar, revolutionary Lusatia, revolutionary Switzerland. Hanover is still here. Not revolutionary somehow, but Frankfurt right next to them. Also revolutionary. Also, big shout out Lithuania with somewhat close to their modern borders. I think these two provinces would be their modern borders. Wallachia has had these exact same borders for like 200 years. And Byzantium actually had a decent comeback, taking a little bit of land over here in Italy, as well as over here in Italy, and then taking land from the Spanish down here in Italy. So they stuck around. They managed to pull out and actually do okay for themselves. Though I do think they may be a little bit overshadowed by Venice, because Venice just had a huge story. I mean, the fact that Austria was weak, I think really helped them. And obviously their power base over here in Anatolia from the Ottomans helped them quite a bit as well. Though in Africa, the Mamluks and Kilwa, oh my gosh, Kilwa, still unable to gobble up Friesland and Australian South Africa, but Kilwa had a friggin' game, man. And the craziest part is they only finished in the 8th spot, but who thought Denmark was going to be the #1 great power? Because I can tell you, I didn't. Venice with the #2 spot, who I actually thought they may have been the #1, followed by the Mams, Russia, France, VJ, Qing, and Kilwa. So as far as I know, only one lucky nation. Maybe Russia's a lucky nation. Russia is a lucky nation as well. I think it's like after 1700 or maybe the whole time. I'm not actually sure. So we have 2 lucky nations in the top 8. You can't win them all, but what do you guys say? And hear me out. We run it back. In a couple of weeks, we'll get this video out again, basically, only we will up the malices to the lucky nation, so it's actually really painful, like it's a death sentence. You can't win, like +10 national unrest. Essentially make it so whoever is lucky is going to die. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, because I want to make sure that I'm making content you want to see. Europe is very Protestant, very Reformed up here, and Anglican in England, where I do have to mention the borders didn't change. It's like 300 years, nothing changed. The AI is borked. Also, look how many men freaking Scotland has. Why did they not go to war? I don't know. I really don't know. Catholics held out in France and Spain, but we also have some Orthodox over here by the Pope man in Italy. Of course, Russia spread the Orthodox faith all the way into northern China, and it looks like a lot of the feet sniffers over here in Africa were converted to Sunni Islam. Catholic in the tip and Reformed around that. Okay. South America, almost all Catholic except for the Calvinists here in Scottish Columbia and Scottish Brazil. Can't forget Scottish Brazil. Though it does demand a special mention. The Muisca, my beloved, remain in 1821. North America, as usual, is a mess. Lots of totemists, but for the most part, it's Catholic as a state religion with Protestant over here and Protestant over here with some Anglican over here. Actually, this is all Catholic as well. It's just because it's occupied by the Danes, who are Protestant. The Lombards look like they pushed across the Alps into Switzerland, and the Austrians pushed just a bit into Hungary. Likewise, it appears that the Czechs had one province removed over here and pushed a province or two over here. Baltan generally starts as just Riga, so that definitely expanded. A couple of random Muscovite provinces here and there, mostly from the Siberian frontiers, but a couple of random ones over here in the steppes. Though Pontic is new. Pontic is definitely new. This is the only Pontic province in 1444. So these guys over here, culture converted by the Greeks. And I don't know about you guys, but seeing a Greek Constantinople, it does put a smile on my Byzantibu face. So it appears that Australia is Portuguese in this timeline, but the Frisians in South Africa Apparently, Transvaal and Orange are Frisian, which is actually kind of funny. I mean, they're not Dutch, but they're Dutch-ish, Dutch kind of adjacent, right? Looks like Mongol culture is a thing. I think it is in 1444, but I don't really know to what extent. A couple of provinces over here that maybe have changed. Looks like Beijing is Manchurian, but I assume that that's from Qing taking the mandate, where, by the way, they passed all but one reform. So Qing and China doing very good as the AI. You love to see it. I know I definitely do. South America, as per usual, is very much Iberian with Platinians in Brazil and Brazilians in La Plata. We also have some Portuguese in the south and some Castilians in the north, but we cannot forget about the Scots. Portuguese also in Cuba, as well as a couple of Central American countries, but definitely North America, especially over here on the left coast. Some Frisian culture over here on the east. Lots of French culture throughout Louisiana, as well as over here in the East Coast and a little bit in Canada. The Hudson Bay Company is almost exclusively Danish. There's also some Danish over here, but Quebec is actually not. It's American. Quebec is an American city in this timeline. But like I said, let me know in the comments if you want to run it back with maybe some different modifiers. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like on it and subscribe for more content because there's plenty more to come. If you want early access to these videos, you can check out my Patreon for as little as $5 a month. You get early access to every video that comes out on Chewbert. I do also have another channel. A lot of people don't know about that, but it's linked in the description below where I do daily Let's Plays. If you want to join my Discord, my subreddit, my Twitter, all those interesting ways to get involved in my community, they're all linked in the description below. I hope that you have had an absolutely wonderful day. I hope you continue to have a wonderful day. You rock. I love you. No homo. Keep on keeping on, and until next time, stay chill.